Tech is a sector unlike any other. It's an industry where individuals can turn into billionaires overnight, technical ideas supersede business fundamentals, and leaders are rewarded for showmanship over competence. In today's Silicon Valley, innovation is crowned, not earned, to those who can tell a story and look the part of an eccentric genius. Venture capitalists and founders are symbiotic. VCs need radical ideas, and founders want to start businesses on someone else's dime. Unprofitable companies are kept alive with injections of capital, gamed valuations, and manufactured media hype with the goal of surviving long enough to IPO or be acquired. The inspirational speeches, motivational essays, generous salaries, and magazine spreads are no accident. It's all there by design to keep the talent pipeline of new grads flowing to the sector. Founders lean on VCs for access to capital, talent, and operational mentorship, while VCs lean on the founders to educate them on technology. But VCs aren't prophets. Most are former Wall Street bankers or celebrities who have never worked in tech.
I don't know if you know the story, but his initial decision to invest in WeWork took approximately 28 minutes, including when he got in, left, and drove in the car.
The minute that you start having to report publicly, you have to start playing games with your numbers, you have to start playing games with your growth, and usually the person that loses in that situation is the consumer. So if we're trying to create extraordinary experiences for consumers over time, the longer those companies can stay private, and by Masa coming in and enabling that, the more unbelievable the experience and more life-changing the experience will be for people.
It's the blind leading the blind, and both sides must perform to reach the same payday. When you win in tech, you win big, hence you only need to win once. This is why there is a near infinite pool of aspiring founders and VCs, and why both parties are so quick to forgive, reconcile, and work together on the next big thing. Yet whenever investors turn bearish on tech, it doesn't take long for the sector to come up with a new growth story. The most recent was in 2022, when the public markets soured on big data and SaaS. Starting in the early 2010s, Silicon Valley had championed big data as a revolutionary technology that could unearth deep insights, hidden patterns, and innovation from massive amounts of data. Big data promised a new, sophisticated, data-driven world where one could precisely predict demand before it existed, trends before they started, and behavior before it occurred, and there was immense potential for the public and private sector. Police could prevent crime before it happened, researchers could detect cancer before it spread, and companies could optimize products, make correct decisions, and gain a powerful edge.
Understanding and innovating with data has the potential to change the way we do almost anything for the better.
There's a waterfall of information waiting to be tapped in your business's production data, log data, workflows, and more. You can unlock new patterns, drive new insights, and reinvent the way you do business.
The big data ecosystem is real. It's in the first inning of a 9-inning game. And in the next 5 years, there's virtually no aspect of our lives that isn't going to be affected.
Now, wouldn't it be great if you had a crystal ball where you could play back historical events and understand what happened in the past, what were some of the symptoms, what were some of the data points, to be able to predict what could happen. So that's what today's topic is all about. How do we find insights and also foresight to make better, well-informed decisions?
Think what happens when we collect all of that data and we can put it together in order to find patterns we wouldn't see before. This, I would suggest, perhaps it will take a while, but this will drive a revolution.
All of a sudden there's a lot of data about people that comes from cell phones, comes from credit cards, comes from other things like that. And of course, people drive society, their wants, their habits, their fads. And so all of a sudden you get to the point where you can begin understanding people in a way we've never been able to before.
Imagine a world where we can predict storms and natural disasters with a much higher degree of accuracy and get people out of harm's way much sooner. The opportunity to be able to have a significant impact on mankind is huge, and quite frankly, it's why I'm so passionate and why I spend all my time working in this area of big data and analytics.
Industry after industry is becoming more intense, more competitive, nastier place to do business, basically, and this is only going to increase as we move deeper into the era of big data. When the better answer comes along, stop listening to the hippos and start listening to the geeks.
Big data was a movement as much as a technology, yet the market started to question if any of these promises were real, as the vast majority of consumer startups and SaaS companies were still bleeding years after their IPO. Even in the most favorable, low-interest business conditions in history, there were barely any winners to point to. Out of nowhere, ChatGPT was released, and AI became Silicon Valley's new growth story. In less than 2 years, everyone has forgotten about big data and SaaS. Every tech company is now an AI company. Every Fortune 500 needs an AI strategy. VCs are only investing in AI startups. Everyone's title on LinkedIn mentions AI, and every product is an AI product. To maintain hype, AI was brought to the public sector. Silicon Valley figureheads put on a performance in front of Congress, begging for regulation, urging protection for workers whose jobs would be displaced, and fear-mongering about an apocalypse. This song and dance was done over and over again until the White House was spooked.
We've done it for other industries. I mean, the IAEA did it, and I think this is a technology that we should treat with that level of seriousness. So, although difficult, I think it's important to try to start the conversation on it. I mean, an AI that could help design novel biological pathogens, an AI that could hack into computer systems, I think these are all scary. But these systems can become quite powerful, which is why I was happy to be here today and why I think this is so important.
But more importantly, the public was convinced of the immense potential of AI. And people continue to speculate to this day with great conviction that artists, animators, translators, and programmers are all next in line to lose their jobs. This episode is not a technical debate, but rather a deep dive into how AI is just the latest tale spun by Silicon Valley to keep valuations high and the outlook positive. Before AI, there was crypto, Web3, blockchain, virtual reality, augmented reality, big data, IoT, and wearables, all supposedly revolutionary technologies that have never lived up to the hype. In this episode, we'll dive into the real market dynamics that push companies and individuals to jump headfirst into these trends, how this all started with big data, and why AI is ultimately just another pump and dump. This episode is sponsored by Kajabi, the ultimate all-in-one platform that helps entrepreneurs build successful online businesses by unlocking predictable recurring revenue. As a creator, it's difficult to build a brand as just about every platform, tool, or partner out there that promises to help you asks for a percentage of your profits. As a creator, you deserve all the benefits, upside, and all of the revenue that you earn. At the same time, it takes lots of hours, effort, and unavoidable trial and error to build a great team, to attract talent, and to establish a positive culture for your company. Most creators just end up doing it all or trying to do it all themselves, which ultimately only limits their growth and encourages unsustainability. With Kajabi, you can build your business the way you want and keep every dollar that you earn. And Kajabi gives you all the tools you need to build a profitable business, so you don't have to hire a huge team or do it all alone. No matter your niche, Kajabi makes it easy to turn your skills, passions, and experiences into enriching online courses, exclusive membership sites, subscription podcasts, thriving communities, personalized coaching, and more. The best part, Kajabi doesn't take a cut of your revenue because everything is owned and controlled by you, so you keep 100% of what you earn. And with Kajabi, you also get robust analytics, easy payment options, email marketing tools, and customizable website templates all built in. You don't need a huge audience to make sustainable income. There are thousands of creators on Kajabi making 6 and 7 figures with less than 50,000 followers. Right now, Kajabi is offering a free 30-day free trial to start your business if you go to kajabi.com/modernmba. That's kajabi.com/modernmba. Kajabi.com/modernmba and join the creators and entrepreneurs who have made over $6 billion. The late 2000s was a period of genuine innovation. The introduction of smartphones and tablets had created new markets. It was the advent of the mobile internet, geolocation, 3G, and the App Store. More could be accomplished in this online world than ever before. You could now track the location of users, which was data that had never been available before. And if you designed for mobile, users would organically flock to you for that superior experience. Numerous startups emerged, eager to be the first movers on these platforms. One was Groupon, an online platform that sent out coupons for local businesses. Their pitch was that they were amassing unprecedented data on consumers and driving paying customers into the door for merchants, which was more than what Google or Facebook had to offer. Groupon knew where people lived, their age, interests, behavior, and they fed all that data into algorithms to send only the most relevant, enticing coupons. As the volume of coupons and merchants increased, the more data that was collected and the faster Groupon could push customers to a business and the more money that it would make. Pandora's story was identical to Groupon. They scientifically abstracted every song in existence down to 480 technical attributes. They collected data on each listener to figure out what they would like. They used proprietary algorithms to predict what music they'll like next, and they generated personalized playlists. The more listeners, the more data, the more accurate its algorithms would get at playing the right song at the right time for each listener. Since Pandora knew the age, gender, and location of every user, they could sell to advertisers. Another popular app was Yelp, who asserted user data and network effects as their moat. Because Yelp knew who was looking for what and where, like Pandora, they sold these eyeballs to advertisers. Grubhub went in a different direction and focused on the takeout experience. Restaurants didn't need to build apps. Instead, they could just pay Grubhub and support online and mobile ordering overnight. And Grubhub had the algorithms and data to personalize feeds and predict what users wanted to eat when. Other first movers in this period were Etsy, Foursquare, Twitter, and WhatsApp. By the early 2010s, the narrative had broadened. Smartphones had gone mainstream, apps became common, and mobile experiences were the norm. It was at this time when Marc Andreessen published his famous essay, Why Software is Eating the World. The thesis was simple, that data was gold in this new digital world. Data could be applied to unlock business value, product optimization, and personalization in any industry. Users generated data, data-powered algorithms, and algorithms produced innovation. Zynga, the studio behind Farmville, proclaimed that they were innovators because of data. They looked at monetization, retention, and engagement every day to quantify what exactly got people hooked and to keep the whales spending. As Zynga amassed more users and more data, they alleged that their analytics would only become more precise and profitable. As an online furniture store, Wayfair offered a near infinite amount of furnitures, styles, and brands. They talked up their real-time proprietary personalization, inventory, and pricing algorithms that would maximize profits on every piece of furniture. Chegg looked to do the same in education with a social network that collected data on high school students. While that product never succeeded, it was clear that Chegg's leaders understood the narrative. Quote, there is a playbook followed by many companies such as Facebook, LinkedIn, Netflix, or Spotify, which is to take a giant category, build products and services that consumers value, use technology to deliver them at scale, and leverage the data it generates. In the case of Facebook, it's social, LinkedIn professional, Netflix entertainment, and Spotify music. The advantages these companies have built through their data makes each of them very hard to compete against. If you own your customer, the channel of distribution, you collect data, you own that data, and you're able to use that data to improve your product, to monitor what people do to deliver better products and services, you should be in the best position to provide overwhelming value to your customer base and to build a giant moat. Thousands of new consumer startups flooded the market backed by venture capital and seeing the same narrative that data was power. But these startups did not have the organic adoption and network effects that the first movers like Yelp, Pandora, LinkedIn, and Facebook had. As a result, they needed to spend millions of dollars on advertising just to acquire users. This chase for users and their data was used to justify the unsustainable marketing spend and broken unit economics. The spin at the time was that all these startups were unprofitable by design, as they needed to acquire the necessary data to supercharge their product and business. There was Wish, who boasted that its algorithms could get customers hooked on buying $1 junk online, and Opendoor, who bragged that they had so much data that their algorithms could value real estate better than humans and flip properties anywhere in the country for profit. Casper proclaimed that data powered their disruption of the mattress industry, and DoorDash asserted that it was data that enabled fast delivery, order routing, and strong earnings for gig workers. And then there was Affirm, who contended that they had the data to issue microloans for luxury purchases. These are just the startups that we've covered in the past on Modern MBA. There were many more, like Blue Apron, who claimed that they had so much data that they knew every individual's taste profiles. They could algorithmically predict demand for any given meal kit and achieve production efficiencies that no one else could. Warby Parker pushed that they had data that no other optical company possessed, and that they were so data-driven that every pair of glasses would be a bestseller. Allbirds pounded that they knew more about customers than traditional sneaker brands, and over time would have higher margins and as many loyal customers as Nike. Stitch Fix declared that they had more data on shoppers than any department store or fashion brand, and that its algorithms could accurately predict what clothes someone would buy sight unseen. TrueCar promised to transform car buying with algorithms that ingested every sale in history and could generate the most accurate price for any vehicle with the make, model, and year alone. Lemonade billed itself as a disruptor whose algorithms crunched so much data around the clock that they could process claims and underwrite policies faster and cheaper than traditional insurance companies. Lending Club crowed that it was their data that unlocked business efficiencies and in turn allowed them to issue lower interest loans online within minutes. SoFi trumpeted that they were collecting all the behavioral data on customers that conventional banks did not get, which would translate to better accuracy and greater profits as a lender. Fitbit disrupted health and fitness by quantifying and visualizing every individual's physical activity. Roku and Netflix both asserted that they had so much data as streamers that they understood viewers better than any film studio or cable network. They knew what people wanted to watch, and by extension had the secret sauce to make any show or movie a hit. These are just a few of the thousands of consumer startups that emerged in this period. If you look at the S1 filing of any consumer tech IPO of the past 15 years and search for the word data, you will see the same narrative spelled out. It was a convincing story. In what world would data not be useful? Yet contrary to what Silicon Valley advertises, tech is not a magical frontier where everyone can be a winner. The reality is that in every industry, there can only be a few winners. Yet no one could argue against the prosperity of Facebook, LinkedIn, Amazon, Google, Netflix, and Microsoft, who are all making a killing with data. Their earnings were snowballing in ways that the public markets had never seen before. The only thing more impressive than revenue was margins, which were the envy of the entire private sector. There was no other stock as reliable, valuable, and still high potential as FANG. If data was the moat for these tech leaders, why couldn't it work for a startup that was nimbler, faster, and more concentrated? If a startup could apply the same data playbook to a smaller industry and achieve just 1/10 of what Facebook or Netflix had accomplished, it would still be enough to IPO. With such high-flying results and thousands of VCs and startups all shouting the same story, data became fashionable. Every one of these consumer startups was crowned as an innovator based on their user growth alone, which was misleading given how much of it had been attained through heavy advertising and artificial subsidies. Data was billed as the means to unlock innovation, but beyond selling data to advertisers, no real business value had actually been discovered. By the mid-2010s, many of these consumer startups were starting to flame out. The few that had gone public were losing just as much money, if not more, than they had been at IPO years before. The premise of innovating through data seemed less convincing by the quarter. In response, Silicon Valley moved the goalposts once again. Data was still valuable. The problem was you just didn't have enough of it or the means to interpret it. Basic analytics and personalization was no longer enough. What you needed now was terabytes of data, sophisticated tools, and data scientists to get to the promised land. This new trend was called big data. To maintain valuations and reputations, these consumer startups embraced Silicon Valley's latest narrative. Still, the Fortune 500 companies were all spooked. No CEO wanted to be caught with their pants down, no executive dared to say that they weren't data-driven, and every Wall Street analyst wanted to know how they were going to stop tech from eating their lunch. And the conversation quickly devolved into a pissing match of who had the most data and best culture. Groupon's newest CEO went all in. Quote, Groupon is in the data stream for every business transaction. We see every bit that comes through these businesses, which gives us really critical insights. We're rewriting our basic personalization and relevance with advanced techniques and machine learning. The secret to our methodology is a data-driven approach. We have more than 9 petabytes of data, and we A/B test every single feature. How many companies do this? Not a lot. None of this would stop Groupon from flaming out in just 5 years. Zynga. Quote, we have a really strong team of data scientists who look at the relationship between the ads we're serving, the number, type, unit, and impact on player engagement. We have developed specialized algorithms and machine learning. We're never going to have the same user data as Facebook, but we can get close. That's how we stand out when we're talking to advertisers with data science-focused engagement. Revenue improved, but Zynga remained as unsustainable as ever. Wayfair. Quote, we capture 4 terabytes of data every day and 40 billion customer actions a year. We have a depth of data rare within the home category. If you don't have the ability to take advantage and manipulate the data for deep analysis, it's tough. Over the last 4 years, we have built a team of 1,900 engineers and data scientists. Data science and machine learning influences our personalization, dynamic pricing, algorithmic merchandising, demand forecasting, and advertising. As a result, we have been able to build multiple platforms at a strong ROI. Deep analysis of data is central to our business and how we win customers. 6 years later, Wayfair has not stopped the bleeding and continues to lose nearly $1 billion every year. Blue Apron. Quote, our direct-to-consumer platform is our most valuable asset, which provides extensive behavioral insights to drive innovation. We have touched millions of customers and have a lot of data from our 6-year history. We use machine learning to give a sense of what customers are likely to order. This allows us to produce the proper amount of protein and produce, which directly impacts food costs and margins. None of this helped pull Blue Apron out of its downward spiral. Grubhub. Quote, we have data on over 100 million orders. Our algorithms will get smarter about the most popular dishes in every neighborhood in 900 plus cities. There is no other company in the US that has this level of transactional data. The velocity of high-quality, high-fidelity data that we're aggregating is incredible at 70,000 points per day. The learnings from our massive troves of data and our data-driven insights will position us well for years to come. Grubhub's losses have deepened, and its owners are still struggling to find anyone willing to take the company off their hands. Lending Club, quote, we've issued over $40 billion of personal loans in 10 years, so the data we have generated is really massive. That is a big data advantage. We simply have this big scale that allows us to slice and dice customer profiles, create unique experiences, and underwriting processes. We deploy the latest machine learning to derive more than 100 customized and behavioral attributes, half of which are proprietary and based on our unique data assets. Lending Club has since cratered in valuation, cut back its lending business, and is worth less than its revenue. Pandora, our biggest strength is the wealth of data and data science capabilities. We have built our product on rich data and algorithms with 6 billion stations and 76 million users listening to 5 billion hours of music. We built this amazing product because we have access to data, and it's what fuels the competitive advantage. Pandora has continued to lose money and users year after year. SoFi. We use data and machine learning to iterate and learn, which ultimately leads to innovation. We've built technologies and processes that enable us to iterate and innovate at a much faster pace and a much lower cost, which provides us more access to data and allows us to provide a better service to members. SoFi's valuation has since plummeted as the company's quote-unquote innovation is just selling the same lending products that banks have done for generations, albeit with nicer UI. And Stitch Fix, our whole business model is predicated on this amazing data that we have. Fundamentally, data helps us buy more of the right product and get into more of the right people. We have a personalization engine that gives us the ability to deeply understand clients and products and generate powerful recommendations on what products will be successful and with whom to millions of clients' individualized preferences. We believe our data science insights offer a significant competitive advantage that will grow over time. Stitch Fix today is a penny stock who has laid off thousands of employees, attempted to push even more on its algorithms to cut costs, and still has continued to bleed money and users year after year. And we already know how things turned out for Opendoor, Affirm, Wish, Casper, and DoorDash. It took until the early 2020s for the big data narrative to die out. No consumer startup had demonstrated anything meaningful with big data, and no one was going to wait another 10 years for progress. Yet even as the walls closed in, these startups held on, screaming about machine learning, deep learning, insights, and innovation to anyone still willing to listen in their last breaths. For the sake of what little remained of their stock and reputation, these founders, executives, and VCs could never admit the truth. Yet when the big data hype train was at its peak, between the early 2010s and the early 2020s, Fortune 500 leaders were in crisis mode. Investors were loving FANG and souring on big corporations as dinosaurs trapped in the Stone Age. Walmart, ExxonMobil, Home Depot, Comcast, Disney, PepsiCo, Chase, and other big corporations each committed hundreds of millions of dollars, some of them even billions, to build out such technical capabilities for themselves. They were all eager to signal that they could be just as cutting edge as tech startups and publicly flaunted their investments in big data. Yet their adoption was fueled by fear rather than merit.
It's hard to imagine an industry that's not substantially altered by this data revolution. Industries as diverse as medical, where the ability to make better diagnostic decisions with the aid of data or to bring more transparency to issues of cost and quality can be transformative.
We're definitely a deeply data-driven business. From the data that's coming from our products, our airplanes, and other products, from the data that we use to manage our business. And it's going to be the key differentiator.
We are on the forefront of a revolution, right? So today, the biggest and most competitive companies in the world will be the one harnessing data. The team that I'm on directly is a team leading that, the headlights of the organization. So that's something I'm super excited about.
We've really been building back-end big data analytic capabilities now for a couple of years. And data is a huge asset for us. It's surprising to me that more people in our space are talking about it, and especially with us, 2 billion visits a year between our online and our stores. using that big data against our best customers, it's a huge asset. And structurally, because we have multiple brands and multi-channels, we've got something not a lot of other apparel companies.
Data could help drill down to see if specific products are leading to infant deaths.
So if we start to see these high mortality rates and we're seeing lots of canned tuna being purchased by these families, then we'll try to look, is there something with the canned tuna that may be helping or causing some of those higher rates in infant mortality?
When the airplane is in flight, we know exactly what they need, and we know exactly what part is located. If the next destination do not have a part, then we have to find a way of flying the part coming in. So the key thing is fixing the airplane at the right place, at the right time, with the right part. And if we can do that, then we don't have to worry about airplane grounded.
Unilever is one of the world's largest consumer products goods company. Our products touch 2.5 billion consumers every day with brands like Hellmann's, Ben & Jerry's, and Dove. We're on a journey to become a data insights-driven company. For our employees, that means providing insights for them to make better decisions, to help them collaborate, develop better products, to innovate. And we're finding that instead of looking in the rearview mirror, with analytics, people are now being able to predict the future.
The whole raft of initiatives around big data and machine learning that will actually help insurers and brokers to increase the power through which they use their own data. As I see that as being something that is an area that really needs to be improved as an industry. There's more and more and more data available, but actually how do you use that, link it all together, join it all up and turn it into something that is actually actionable in real time?
Data and making that data available, analyzing it, are all ways that we can think about crafting a unique experience for our customers. At JetBlue, we like to say that we're a customer service company that just happens to fly planes. Now it almost seems as though we're also a technology company that happens to fly planes.
No CEO wants to be the one who screwed the pooch, and it was safer to have an iron in the fire than to walk against Silicon Valley. And smaller companies got just as wrapped up in the narrative, with the best example being Under Armour, who dropped over $500 million on fitness apps with the dream of achieving FANG margins and uncovering business insights and user data. It's said that during a gold rush, you should sell shovels. For the handful of startups that we've named, there were thousands more of these startups writing the same narrative that never went public. And yet once the corporations joined the big data revolution, the demand for talent skyrocketed. These were greenfield technologies, and it was believed that the more bodies you could throw at complexity, the faster you would arrive at a solution. Job opportunities and salaries for data scientists and software engineers reached record highs as the private sector competed for talent. But this only addressed the problem of who and not how. The majority of consumer startups and big corporations lack the technical means to extract, store, manipulate, analyze, and visualize data, and it would take too long to build everything themselves. It would be faster and cheaper to simply buy the tools if they existed. This demand spawned a stream of enterprise startups who rushed in to provide ready-to-go, out-of-the-box software tools made for big data. Because thousands of consumer startups had staked their existence on these technologies, and the Fortune 500 were now willing to spend big to catch up, billions of dollars flowed in year after year towards these B2B startups. Unlike the venture capital-backed consumer startups, these corporations had the appetite and the runway to spend 7 to 8 figures in perpetuity on any vendor who could help them get to the promised land. If we revisit the tech IPOs of the past decade, and we look at the companies with the greatest appreciation in valuation since IPO, the winners are nearly all enterprise startups. Datadog and Splunk are two leaders in telemetry that to this day have reached billion-dollar valuations selling table stakes for capturing and monitoring data. Tableau and Apogee both benefited dramatically from the big data trend through the 2010s. Snowflake, Sumo Logic, Hortonworks, and Cloudera are all startups that quickly surpassed hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue selling essentials for big data. And all those petabytes needed to be stored somewhere, which led to storage startups like Rackspace, Backblaze, Box, and database startups like MongoDB. The demand for user data meant greater emphasis on SMS and email, which SendGrid, RingCentral, and Twilio were all happy to provide services for a price. The volume of information, sensitivity of data, and complexity of application logic made companies targets for hackers. Security vendors like CrowdStrike, Barracuda, Okta, and Palo Alto Networks have all thrived under the promise of helping enterprises and startups secure their data. And to accelerate execution, startups like Atlassian, ServiceNow, JFrog, Asana, and Slack all build themselves as critical tools for boosting worker productivity and collaboration. Being B2B by default doesn't make for a better business, as Snowflake and many other tech companies to this day are still chasing profitability. But their valuations are significantly more resilient than those of consumer startups, given the widespread demand, the exceptional deal size, and the slow churn that's unique to enterprise software. Once a tool or vendor is ingrained at a big company, it's extremely difficult to rip out. Yet not every Fortune 500 had the talent to execute on big data, and most needed to pay an outside firm to perform the implementation. The money flowed not just to tooling, but also to consulting. Accenture, HP, IBM, Oracle, Booz Allen Hamilton, and Gartner all pledged that they had the expertise to pull off any big data project. It's no surprise that these same consultants are now tooting their horns about AI. Yet ultimately, the companies that profited the most from big data were the cloud players. AWS, GCP, and Azure saw their greatest growth during this 10-year period. The consumer startups were spending their funding building their products in the cloud. The Fortune 500s were using big data as a forcing function to adopt cloud in their organizations, and B2B startups were also building their tools in the cloud. To the cloud providers, it doesn't matter if it's big data, machine learning, IoT, augmented reality, or AI. As long as people are using the cloud, and whatever trending technology drives them to use more of it, Amazon, Google, and Microsoft all win. Software engineers have always been in high demand, but the paradigm shifted in this time period with big data. Across the private sector, companies were on the hunt for practitioners, offering the high salaries to the few available with real-world experience in big data. Since the technology was so new, there were no best practices. Everyone was figuring it out as they went along and doing it all in the open on GitHub. If you were an engineer, you could get experience in big data through your day job or at home through open source. If you knew your way around the most popular tools, you could declare that proficiency on your resume and get rewarded with a higher paying job elsewhere within months. Big data amplified resume-driven software development, where engineers now are incentivized to learn and even evangelize technologies for the sole purpose of maximizing compensation and hireability. Developers today are no longer coding grunts, but instead vocal, visible rock stars who can make demands and spearhead change at their organizations. Engineers get to decide on the behalf of their companies what clouds they want to use, what tools they get to adopt, and what vendors they want to partner with. This is why enterprise startups and cloud vendors each spend millions of dollars every year on conventions, free pizza, and beer just to court developers and to try to convert them into champions of their products. This shift to bottoms-up decision-making, with engineers leading the way, is almost like a battle of religions, where every enterprise startup is trying to convert the most possible developers to their faith at any given time. As a result, software engineering has become progressively more tribal, as developers have hitched their paychecks and career prospects to the popularity of the technologies that they adopt, rather than their business contribution.
Because when you think about like getting to those cool kids, building trust and getting them to say, hey, I'm going to bet my company's infrastructure on a product you released 3 months ago that barely works. That's a very high level of trust, and that person needs to have very high conviction that they're not making a career-ruining mistake.
And companies keep investing because their technical teams are all incentivized to play up their work even when there's nothing to show. That's the only way these engineers, their managers, and their VPs can justify budgets, get raises, and climb the ladder. The people that worked on big data had a vested interest in keeping the technology trendy, despite the lack of results, and are now doing the same with AI. Whether it's bottoms-up or top-down adoption, money talks, even for those who are simply implementing the technology itself. This is why there's never any end to the online debates between React versus Angular, Kubernetes versus ECS, and so on. You can see that same tribalism in AI, where there's no consensus on what tool is best, TensorFlow or PyTorch, or which model is most accurate. The premise of big data was that you could unearth hidden innovation, business value, customer insights, and market patterns from data that was simply too overwhelming for a human to digest and analyze. These days, everyone has seemingly forgotten about big data's failed promises. But the current premise of AI is even more confusing. The new narrative is that data is inherently too complex. Instead, what we're supposed to believe is that all that promised innovation, buried insights, and hidden business value is still in this data. It's just that humans can't pull it out. Instead, our only solution is to trust these artificial models, where only a few people have a true understanding of what's really happening under the hood for perspective and insights. We should be told the answers and not seek it ourselves, and we should value the digestibility and presentation above the accuracy of information itself. For big data, every company had its own data, timelines, politics, and priorities, which made execution completely unique. Every implementation was a snowflake deployment. Since no one has achieved any value with big data, no one really knows, even now, nearly a decade later, how to actually implement and derive value. No one can authoritatively say, this is how you execute and this is how you can replicate step for step what we did for your own business. Engineers essentially are reinventing the wheel but never finishing. Managers and executives push for vanity updates and exaggerate their progress for the sake of growing their organizational influence, appeasing higher-ups, and securing their own promotions. The market dynamics that propelled big data are now playing out again with AI, with thousands of new consumer startups arriving on the market with AI products with only the promise of business value, enterprise vendors who are now peddling AI tools to sell to these consumer startups. The Fortune 500 are running scared once again. The cloud providers and chip makers are laughing from their ivory towers at the money that's raining down from the heavens. Engineers are jumping into the latest open source projects to pad resumes and improve their career prospects, and tech is once again the darling of Wall Street.
Because the transformation in compute is accelerating at such a pace, and the implications on productivity and efficiency in business are going to be enormous.
So what just happened here is we're actually using our Deep Brew AI platform to be able to suggest optimal product pairings based off of contextual information of the store, the weather, and other things that are going on.
AI allows better allocation of resources. Right. Basically, it allows you better planning. You save money. You become more efficient. There's every reason to think that the use of AI will make our businesses more efficient, therefore just literally waste less money. That's good. It's good for economics.
Like Airbnb and Uber, ChatGPT was built on the similar playbook of skirting regulation. ChatGPT went viral for its breadth of knowledge and its convincing human-like prose. But when all of that is built on stolen data, who holds the power? Is it the people who generated the data or the technology that summarized it? Like every other hyped Silicon Valley technology of the past decade, AI is just another cash grab. The primary reason of why OpenAI's employees revolted when Sam Altman was fired was because his removal made their stock worthless, and the staff there are all looking for a payday, just like Sam, the board, and the venture capitalists. It's not a question of whether or not large language models have merit or to dispute that technology improves over time, but based on how little business value was delivered in the past decade from big data, blockchain, SaaS, and every other aforementioned trend, AI deserves much greater scrutiny. Not every innovation can be monetized, and not every promising technology needs to be a business. Big data did not make any difference for the consumer startups and the Fortune 500 over the past decade. If anything, it only prolonged the lifespan of startups that should have never existed in the first place. These days, all companies are doing layoffs, cutting costs, engaging in shrinkflation, and buying back shares to squeeze profits just like they've always done. Things that they shouldn't have to do if big data actually generated the greater business efficiencies and innovation that was promised. There's nothing in the fundamentals that suggests that big data has netted any meaningful improvements for any company. If there really was business value in big data, someone by now would have something to show for it. The same exact dynamic is now playing out with AI. It's all talk, no show, all hype and no results, all sizzle and no steak, and everyone is falling for the same ruse once again. The only winners from big data were the founders, executives, and venture capitalists of the consumer startups who all liquidated their shares at IPO, or those of the B2B startups. The losers were the public, the investors, and the employees at these companies. If you had to guess, who are the winners and losers of AI really going to be? And what is the value of information without critical thinking, art without authenticity, and creation without originality?